Hey man, so my name is Spivvy, and today, for whatever reason that ailed me here today, well, the reason is I'm going to be making this video as a guide, a getting over it guide. Getting over it. What's up with the volume, buddy? And I guess this is the worst intro ever. Okay, we're gonna mute some of the volume there. This is going to be, so, a little backstory. Bang up intro, I know. Getting over it is, I suppose, one of my favorite games. I mean, it's not like I always play it, but it's come and gone in my life, and this year, about a month ago now, I've finally beat it. It took me quite a few years of just kind of coming back to it like twice a year whenever I randomly was feeling it. And finally beat it. Since then, I've beat it about, kind of casually, about 13 times, I think. One of which being about 10 minutes ago, which was actually a 10-minute run. So by no means am I like, speedrunning. Well, that is very quick. That's by far, I think that's 5 minutes ahead of my best time, which was 15, I suppose. By no means am I the getting over it master, but I have a couple of friends. Well, I just tried to actually make this video, I think, around a month ago, because my friend Plastic had just picked up this game and was struggling with very, very specific parts of the game. And it's hard to kind of explain to somebody without showing them through the game, especially with a game like this. And I was just watching my friend Nick's stream, and he was really struggling with the game. And there's quite a few... I think, okay. Sometimes you can just get unstuck there. Little tidbit of knowledge is there are few... First tips with spiffs is there are actually few spots on the game where you can actually get stuck to where you'd have to like restart the game. There's not a lot of those. I do believe there are, but not a lot of them. So moments like that, for example. Sometimes the game will literally just kind of wiggle you out of the way if you kind of fuck with it enough. But there are moments where you can kind of get stuck, but you can usually get out of it. Okay, but yeah, this is already way worse than the other version of this I tried to record. I tried to record this a month ago, and recently I did something to where my shadow play somehow the default microphone had changed, and so there was no commentary for the recording, so I was like, well, fuck that. So this is not going to be your average getting over it video, whatever that means. I mean, like I said, disclaimer, I'm no getting over it master. But there's just kind of, I wrote down a few things. I think I did this in the last rendition of this video as well. I just wrote down some kind of little bullet point phrases that I want to go over, because I think a lot of people seem to miss things like that about this game. And yeah, so right off the bat, the first thing I want to talk about is the most boring thing, is hands and wrists. Please, I don't know why I'm saying this, but please take breaks from this game, because this game, you know, in any excess, not even in excess, this game, like 10 or 15 minutes of this game, it even will fucking make your wrist incredibly fatigued. And as someone who suffers with carpal tunnel myself, I feel myself inclined to just warn that it is not pleasant to have your wrists suffer, and then suffer that much more by the hands, or by the hammer of this game. So stretch your wrists, take breaks. You're probably not going to beat this game in one go. So just put that out of your mind. Take breaks. Second thing, and this is probably the biggest thing, is patience. And I'll get to there's specific reason why I making this video. So, but I just want to clear some of the bullet points before I actually start the game, because I don't want to get like ahead of the game and not be able to commentate it. So the big thing, I think the biggest virtue in this game that'll help you succeed in it is patience. You know, don't play the game like this. You probably can't hear my mouse right now, but it's just going haywire. The game just won't work. You're not gonna... Oh, look, I got a little bit. I got one branch by pure sheer luck. Oh, I'll get there if I just keep... It's not gonna work. And you might be thinking, well, I don't do that, so what's the problem? Well, patience doesn't just mean spamming the mouse. It also just kind of means spamming the mouse at the wrong time, in any degree. You know, when people are kind of hanging off the edge... Here, let me show you something. When people are kind of hanging off of the edge of something, if they fall, but they catch themselves with the hammer, the first thing they'll do is this, to try and, like, get themselves back up. But as you can see, it kind of pushes your momentum to the left when you do that at times. And you'll find that when you get higher and higher in the map, it's going to become more of a virtue, more of a facet to kind of pay attention to, is that was a moment where you should have just let your mouse kind of be still, and you wouldn't have gone down further. Stuff like that. All these things are going to come in time. This is a game that you can get better at, and it's going to take practice, and you're going to have to learn how to feel out the game. The game has mechanics. They're not that crazy. They're actually pretty kind of rational, if you think about it. And just, yeah, biggest thing is be patient. If you're not patient, you know, if you think you can just fucking 1 minute speed run through this game first try, it's never gonna happen. But like I said, I'm not trying to like put an emphasis on that. I'm actually trying to say, be patient in situations. Like, don't let your nerves get to you. Don't let yourself spaz out with the mouse, because the moment you spaz out with the mouse in any degree is going to be a moment that you're going to fall even further than you potentially might have, or whatever. Or you're going to fall in the first place. Just keep calm. Be patient. See, there's no reason to just be in such a hurry. Oh, I didn't get that, so let's get up there as fast as possible. Like, that's kind of like the mental that I see when people play this game. Is people think that it's like so vital for your hammer to be, you know, clasping something at every chance. You're gonna have plenty of opportunities to hook that hammer onto something as slowly as possible. You know, it's like, you know, it's kind of like playing guitar. I'm something of a guitar player myself. And, you know how when you start playing guitar, for any of the guitar players, or maybe any, I guess, traditional musical instrument, or really just anything that you practice, you have to start out slow and get a feel for it. And then once your muscle memory starts to kind of get, your muscles start to get used to that kind of movement, then you can speed it up, and you're going to make mistakes, and then the mistakes go away, and you can speed it up more, and thus the human potential is, as we like to think, somewhat virtually limitless. So, patience. Don't rush. Don't let your nerves get to you. Don't let your nerves set you further back than you ever desired to go. It's gonna happen, though. This is a game that sets you up for failure. But just get over it, man. A side note, before I move on to the next bullet point that I didn't write down. The commentary that Bo Burnham, Bennett Foddy, I'm not going to tell you to, I'm not going to like preach about it, but most Let's Players I see play this game, especially bigger YouTubers, are always like, oh, what is this guy? Shut up, I'm not trying to listen to, well, what else are you doing? He has some interesting stuff to say. I suggest paying attention to it, listening to what he has to say. And it really ties into the, I guess, ideal of this game, which is don't get mad at stuff. No. And I feel like I had more to say there, but yeah. All these bullet points will be also kind of touched on further as I proceed throughout the game. Like, I'll probably come back to patience at certain points, reiterate what I mean about certain things. The last bullet point before I start the game is arm's length. If you're looking at what I'm doing here, I'm moving my mouse up and down, and as you can see, the cursor is the little ball, you know, the little bubble. But nobody really looks at that, at least I don't. And it's pretty useless too, in my opinion. Unless you're stuck. Like, sometimes you can move the cursor too far and it'll actually just cause your character to kind of lock up. He only has so much of the muscles, you know. Can't really lift himself all the time in every single situation. But the big thing about this game that I also see people, and I'll touch on this further along in the game. There's multiple points where this could be of use. This advice is just take a look at what I'm doing here. Look at how much I've kind of conserved myself into one small little fudge pile of sorts. This game has the mechanic of reaching out your arms. You know, I could choose to do this, or I can choose to do this. Reach out my arm. See how far that goes? You might be thinking, well, duh, but you won't be saying that at some parts of the game, and I'm going to teach you why that's important and why it's to be used, or to be, I guess, thoughtful about when you're proceeding through this game. Here's a good spot. A lot of people, they're just rushing through and they're not thinking, and they just think they could do this. And sometimes that'll just push you back because you're striking the hammer on a surface that can't really be grasped onto. What you're better off doing is grasping here, what makes sense. Using that arm's length. So we're starting the game here. Like I said, I'm no expert. I'm no master. But I'm definitely even better than I was when I made the first video. And it's not even that I feel like I can give people advice. It's just that, I mean... Okay, I guess I feel like I can give people advice. I guess I do have that feeling, but... I'm not super hot-headed about how good I am at this game, because we all know how good people are at this game. Anyway, I'm not one of those people. The beginning of the game, I gotta be honest, and this ties into the patience thing a little bit. I'm not gonna really commentate much about what I'm doing, because it almost goes against sort of a principle of sorts that I'm even making this video, because I feel like, in a way, the point of this game is to just figure it out yourself. Just finally just take a moment to learn how to do it yourself. And, you know, because a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with having help. We all know that. But if you listen to Bo's commentary, he, in a way, I feel like at times he's kind of insinuating that anybody who's getting to a certain point in the game is really just kind of one of a kind for not letting the game get to them and just being patient and just being persistent, getting through it. I guess I'll go back down here. So, the beginning of the game, I'll just say, I'm not going to commentate very much of it. Like, the whole thing that I just did is pretty self-explanatory. If you can't figure that out, then maybe this game is not particularly for you. I guess that's all I'm going to say. But I will help with this chimney part, because everybody kind of gets stumped here. The rock is... It's plausible. It's a plausible option. I never use it, but you can use the rock. But a lot of people don't realize how far you can actually pogo in this game. You can totally pogo right up. One thing to think about is about the arm's reach. The thing I taught you, or the thing I told you about, and you were thinking probably, well, that's obvious. But you know what? When I see people playing this game, the first and biggest mistake is that they think they can just pogo up and then do something like that. Quickly just reach their hammer up, but in turn, it's actually just slamming them back down. What you have to do is be smart about where you're lifting your hammer up. Yeah, you have to be quick, and it's going to take probably a lot of tries, trial and error. But think about it. If you try to put your hammer up this way, there's a chance you'll hit the rock, or some part of the rock that might set you back. And if you try to lift the hammer up this way, if you're too far, you're going to hit your hammer here, possibly, and fall down. So, that's the method I got. Is lifting this way just at the right time, and making sure your arm's reach is nice and scrunched, so you don't have any setbacks where you're kind of just shoving yourself, sabotaging yourself. That's kind of the theme of the game, is self-sabotage. And at moments like that, where you don't use the mechanic of the arm's reach, which is almost kind of less of a mechanic and more of like just a physicality, basic physicality. If you don't use that, you're going to sabotage yourself a lot. So, yeah, the Devil's Chimney, it's not so difficult. I know a lot of people like to overthink it, a lot of people get super frustrated, but just be patient, don't rush. Rushing is literally only going to hurt you in that situation. If you rush, you're going to fail. You're like 99% more likely to fail, and 99% more likely to just stunt yourself, you know? You're going to be slowing down your progress by a lot, unless you just be patient. Ironically, the fastest way is to go slow. Now, I will say for this part, if anybody didn't know, which I think a lot of people do know, but there's actually a speedrun. There's one, there might be another one, but there's one speedrun skip that I'm aware of in this game. And it's this little rooftop here. Now, I usually don't take this route, but you can skip Straight up. Usually I don't take the route because somehow I can never manage to really get the proper swing to get high enough. Except that time I did it first try, somehow. But that's the only skip I'm aware of. If there's any others, you know, don't quote me, but... So, let's continue along here. This is all pretty self-explanatory. Just don't spaz out. The more you spaz out, there's a nice little ditch waiting for you at the bottom of this obstacle. And if you decide to freak out or lose your patience, then you'll just be its dinner. So just stay calm. Just flow with the mechanics of the game. Try your best to get a feel for them. I know they're not orthodox. They're very strange. Sometimes you'll fall. Oh. See, I haven't played this game in a couple of weeks. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, kind of any game I play, it always takes a couple of days for me to kind of regain what initial skill I had. So like I said, I'm no getting over it master. Here's a spot we can pogo up. And now this is a point where you can fuck yourself. But all you gotta do is just let momentum... Usually I use the hammer to catch myself here, but instead I landed here. You're not always gonna land there, so have your hammer kind of to the right, get ready to catch yourself. And then here, a lot of people like to just quickly spaz, but this spot is, I think, your first major use of the momentum mechanics in this game. A lot of people just think that you can just pogo and that's it. Like, if you just shove your mouse down, then it's going to be good enough. But there's actually an incredible amount of momentum that you can build up in this game just with this hammer. If you just shove your mouse down, you can see I didn't really go that high. It was quick, and there was kind of nothing going on. But if you kind of just start... Now, this is all in one kind of swift, quick motion, of course. But if you just take your mouse and start kind of slow and build up the speed as you're moving your mouse, you'll see how high you can actually go. You can pogo quite high. It just needs to be a swift motion and not just kind of a jerk of the mouse. And as for speedrunners, that's kind of what they do. But, I mean, I'm not gonna like contest to their methods, that's for sure. And to be honest, I mean, if you jerk your mouse hard enough, if you jerk off hard enough, you're gonna get where you want to go. But a lot of people don't realize that there does seem to be kind of a value placed in momentum. So if you just shove your mouse around, you'll probably get actually a lacking effect in your movement compared to if you were to actually treat it like a hammer and kind of use momentous movement. So slow and fast, treat it like a hammer. It's kind of hard to explain any more really than that. Now here's the first biggest, in my opinion, possibly the hardest jump in the game. Or at least the most awkward jump in the game. Or maybe just the most risky jump in the game. Sorry, that was my jaw. I don't know if you heard that. Most people come over here and they pogo up. But I've kind of stopped doing that. I've taken the cautious approach, which I somehow never realized. But just let your arm extend out and pull yourself up. And if I would have panicked there, that would have ended very badly. I probably would have gone back to the very beginning if I would have panicked and tried to move my mouse to kind of levy the action in the other direction. I would have ended up going flying to the left. So this is orange hell. I mean, well, that was orange hell, and this is still kind of orange hell continued. A little call out for the in-game landmark. This rock is probably the most pivotal, the one I have my hammer on, in the whole section. Now, I totally recommend that you take your utmost time with this section until you're absolutely comfortable with it. I'm going to point out that this rock right here, this kind of hump in the rock where it gets dark in the texture, kind of right under where my hammer is the slipperiest, the most slippery part of the rock. So if you're on the rock below, trying to get up to this one, make sure you are going to place your hammer kind of here, around here, to kind of lift yourself up. Because if you place your hammer here, like that, chances are your hammer's going to slip if you're lifting yourself up too slow or whatever. It's just more likely to slip. Then what I like to do, this is kind of a little mind game. I mean, you can get up by kind of using the hammer like this, but I don't usually do it that way. Usually what I do is use the momentous pogo method. Get nice and propped, and that was terrible. But just a nice swift motion will get you right to where you want to go. And see, that was problematic. That way I just kind of was too quick and tried to lift myself up with the hammer way too early. Not recommended to do that unless you kind of know how to save yourself. And don't be too afraid when you have to pogo yourself and your guy is kind of angled to the opposite direction. Just kind of, what do you call it? Compensate your pogo in the opposite direction, so you don't have any mess ups with the with going the wrong way. And one thing I'm going to say about this spot is right here. You can see your hammer kind of digs into the foundation, the wall, and sometimes you can get your hammer caught there and it can send you flying. And especially with the thumbs up. The thumbs up, if you try, you can see your hammer kind of gets kind of real snug in between the wall and the thumb there, and if you do it too quickly you can send yourself flying. So just some advice. I've been wondering why they took that jump scare out. Oh, I did just hear the noise, I think, but I've been wondering why he lowered the audio so much to where you can literally barely hear it. I kind of miss that jump scare. I feel like it was kind of it kind of fit the vibe of the game. I wish you'd just turn it up, honestly. So this jump, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, this is the hardest jump in the game. Hardest, most awkward, least risky. This rock is kind of a trick. I can't really think of a good scenario where you can actually get up if you prop yourself up on this rock. All you like to do is just, once again, a nice momentous swift pogo. Now, one thing I've found, I'm still kind of learning with this jump, but I've been getting it way more often. It used to take me like a full play session to get up there, if even. One thing I'm starting to realize about this is the biggest thing is if your character hits any part of the right side of this rock, you're not getting up. Tough luck getting up. Best thing you want to do is just one straight swift movement straight up and reach your hammer over. Now I'd say right here there's actually kind of a line. I mean, it's pretty obvious looking at its steepness, but this is all ice and you'll slip if you try. So the best thing, the biggest opportunity for your hammer is to get it as close to the snow looking texture as possible. It's a lot more grippy. So this jump, I think, gets a lot of people flustered, but it's really not that hard. the last major 3 jumps, as you might have noticed, have required very swift, momentous, and there you go, momentous pogos. You can't just shove your mouse and expect to go high enough. It's a very high jump, and you have to use the momentum mechanics of the game to push yourself off. So, obviously that part's pretty self-explanatory, and there is one thing I have missed, though, so I'll go back. First of all, whoops. Just be patient. The last thing, this is probably the last place you'll fuck up. You can't really get sent back to the bottom of the map here. But I will say, it seems like people will get pretty flustered in this area because they'll want to get up, and they'll do a lot of that. And I do that all the time too. But there's a reason we're doing that. And it's because once we get up, we want to get up and over as fast as possible. So our hands kind of inherently want to move. And all it ends up doing is just fucking us up and sending us backwards. So be kind of mindful of keeping your hammer as still as possible. And as you can see, it's slowly slipping. This edge, this platform is actually pretty slippery, conveniently for us. But all you gotta do is prop yourself up. This surface right here is very slippery. I would just recommend pogoing. And I usually pogo up to this, and like so. Once again, another situation where there's a lot of spaces like this essentially throughout the map, especially, I mean, kind of almost copy pasted, where as you can see there's a wall to my upper left, and if I hit that wall with my body, I'm gonna go flying to the left. So what you want to do is make sure you get a nice straight jump straight up and grapple yourself. Now this part, I know there's probably faster ways to do it, but I always take the cautious route, which is a nice momentous. I use that word so much, I know. Swift movement. Just trust your hand. You'll definitely want a feel. If you can't do a momentous pogo by this point in the game, then you're probably going to fall off of this part and struggle with it. But just lower yourself, get to a nice angle, don't go too low, you might slide off, and boom! And this is the last rock before the next seg of the game. Nice and careful, no need to rush, do not rush. A lot of people will panic there and shake all around and fuck themselves up. Alright, now, believe it or not, in my opinion, this is actually the hardest part in the game, is the fucking bucket. Because the bucket is like the only, you know, non-static object, one of the only non-static objects of the game. It can be very difficult to get yourself on this bucket. If you pogo too high, I really don't have great advice, because I still struggle so much with the bucket, and it might take me a while here to get it. But the best thing you can do, I think, is be as gentle as possible, because if you pogo too high, as you can see, the tension of the rope holding the bucket will just kind of spaz, and pretty much you'll land on it for a second, and then the tension will cause you to fall back off of it. So, just a note, this is the last place where you want to lose your patience. You're not completely safe. You can easily fall to the right or to the left, and the left actually brings you to the I probably will bleep that out because I don't really want to spoil, and I just kind of did, but you probably kind of get what I said regardless. And as you can see, I have gotten a little better. Well, you can't see that, but I am saying. I've gotten a little better at the bucket. Best advice I can offer is, yeah, it's gonna take a while, but be gentle and just, there you go. That was perfect. And unfortunately, not good enough in terms of rocking yourself up. You're gonna want some momentum on the bucket sometimes. Most of the time, you want the bucket to be swinging, which thankfully you can kind of make it swing once you've grasped onto it, but let me just try and focus here. There's really nothing more I can tell you about the bucket, man. Good luck it, and fuck it. Oh, skimmity! That was just a sad attempt. And now it's really swinging. No sense in trying. And this might take a while. And alright, so let's just swing. And we almost got it. Almost. Best case scenario is you'll get on the wood. Well, that's not best case scenario, but I guess kind of best case scenario, you'll get on the wood platform. I guess best case scenario, like the best place you can land is actually above the bucket on the ice, which I've only landed like that I think once, and that was actually last playthrough. I was very lucky. Oh, that was just perfect. So a little momentum. This isn't gonna work. Yeah, so much for that. See, I'm kind of hanging right off the map there, so I gotta be careful. And see that? It's pretty easy to fall over. You could just not be paying attention for a slight moment. Oops, nice. For just a moment, and you'll be a couple of stages behind suddenly. Okay, that I kind of rushed, and I could have easily just knocked myself right back down there, but I'm glad I didn't, because I am not a fan of the bucket part. So now the best thing to do, what's the word? Momentous pogo. Up to the top, and you'll see here's a moment similar to the tree at the beginning of the game where sometimes you can get stuck under the wood here, or right here. It feels like kind of dreadful, but if you just fiddle around and don't lose your patience, and as you can see, with enough fiddling you can get yourself over. Now here's what I do at this stage. You can pretty much go about it however you want. It's not that big of a jump, but what I do, kind of prop my hammer up, extend my arm, and just, there you go. Remember, do not, like I said, be patient. Don't, when you land on the ice, if you're landing like this, you know, and pushing your hammer down, you're just going to fall right back. You're just going to fall down because it's going to send you to the left. So when you land on the ice, make sure your hammer is as still as it possibly can be. Now for the mountain, this is the last kind of difficult obstacle, I suppose, of the game. And I will say, all I'll give for advice for the mountain top is that there are usually within a full arm's reach or so, almost a full arm's reach of the hammer, you'll see these little parts in the snow where you can see that the texture kind of cuts and you can actually dig your hammer into. Now you could take it really slow and just do this and seat yourself. You can actually seat yourself and then feel out the next spot with your hammer. There's the next spot, and you can seat yourself. And I definitely recommend doing that if this is your first playthrough, which I assume it is. Well, I assume you probably wouldn't be watching it if it wasn't. Maybe, but there are plenty of spots in the snow where you can kind of dig your hammer into. And there's only... And there you go. I mean, trust me, your run is not going to look like what mine just did. But just do your best not to shove yourself to the left. That's all I can really say. Get a feel for the motion of your hammer. And don't do anything that would shove yourself to the left. It's kind of hard to explain. I suppose I could probably film myself, you know, my hand. But really, if you're this far in the game, I'd like to think you probably have a feel for the mouse and the movement at this point. So just take it easy. Don't rush, because you can get sent down back to the bucket and more, of course. And now we're here. The last obstacle of the game. The radio tower, which is actually more difficult than you might think, because your hammer can kind of get stuck in pretty much every obstacle here, and it can send you to the left. So just take it as slow as you want. Can't do a lot of explaining for this part. Pretty self-explanatory. And that was just dumb on my part. I will say about the radio tower that it is actually a relatively annoying obstacle. The most annoying part is this first disc. If you fuck up the first disc, I mean, nothing really happens, but the first disc, I think, is the hardest obstacle. You'd be surprised at how often your hammer... See? My hammer just got stuck. You'd be surprised at how often your hammer gets stuck. So that is getting over it. Try not to poker yourself backwards. You can seep back down to the ground if you shove yourself off of these rocks. Just kind of get it right and use these rocks. There's a little bit of leverage to keep lifting yourself up. Don't hit them the wrong way. And boom. Oh, there's another one. And oh, we're probably going to have to hit that one. Use the hammer to kind of move yourself a little. And there you go. Usually 3 boulders. And that's the game. That is getting over it. So be patient. Best of luck. Watch out for slippery parts. I tried to cover all the most slippery spots. There actually, you know what? There's one thing I missed. God damn it. Let me show you guys one more thing. There's actually one more thing I missed. That I failed to mention. And I'll talk about it a little bit as I'm getting up to the part. But there's actually a great video. One of my favorite videos on YouTube is... See how I was kind of rushing there? And it was literally, I was going nowhere. Just be patient. There's a great video on YouTube of Bennett Foddy actually playing this game on Kotaku, and with Tim Rogers, and they have a wonderful little hour-long session and conversation about the game and about life and about games and whatnot, and about games like this. And love that video. I always come back to it every, like, twice a year maybe I watch it. And in that video, you can see Bennett sort of struggling with this area for a moment. This area with the red, I guess, rebar or whatever this is. This red platform where he's kind of trying to rush. And he's doing something like this. And as you can see, the hammer just keeps slipping. And sometimes you just can't really control that slip. But one thing he says in the video is, you know, if you just take your time, there's plenty of grip. And that's true. If you're going to rush, then you're going to slide. But all you have to do is take your time. See how easy that was? Now you might have been playing this game and just doing this, and you get nowhere except to the opposite direction. That's how a lot of this game works, but all you have to do is just take your time. See how easy that was? So easy. So, Devil's Chimney, best of luck. This game is just not for the faint of heart. It's seriously a tough game. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not. I'm sure some people will. But this game, it takes a lot to get to know it. The mechanics are... I guess the idea of the mechanics are not very forgiving. But you can do it. Anybody can. As long as you're willing to follow the philosophy of the game itself. And what Bennett talks about in this game is just kind of don't get mad at stuff. Be patient and just be persistent and pay attention and learn. And you'll get over it. Just get over it, man. And as you can see, I'm already kind of halfway done with the game again. Once you pass the game, everything gets a little easier. Slowly but surely. And actually, the way I passed this game for the first time, it took me years, but what I would do is I would play until I got to a part that I felt like I couldn't pass, no matter how long I tried for. And then I'd restart the game. And it would just, all I would do is help me get a feel for parts that I was already familiar with even further. And so, the more you spend time on obstacles in this game, the better you will get at them. You know, this game isn't just a game that completely punishes you. You can be good at it. The speedruns speak for themselves. I mean, it goes to show that you can get better, and in speedrunners' cases, you can get good enough to beat the game in fucking 49 seconds or whatever the record is now. I think it's like just under a minute or something. But anyway, that's getting over it. I hope you learned something. Shout out Plastic, and shout out Nick. I may send this video his way, even though he didn't ask for it. But that's getting over it. I hope you get over it. It's a very important game with a lot of great and interesting philosophical topics covered. Thanks for listening. If you listen this far, best of luck. I'll see you later.